Welcome, everybody, to the morning meeting. Thanks for joining. Breaking news as we come on here this morning, 9 Eastern time, about a prisoner swap between the U.S. and Russia. We're going to talk about that and the politics of that. We're going to talk about this question of after yesterday's big back and forth, who's got the upper hand overall between Donald Trump and Vice President Harris. And we'll talk about deep stakes and our latest sense of that, since that is coming, I think, as soon as the next couple days. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for joining. If you're watching here on the two-way platform and you'd like to get into the conversation, please raise your electronic hand. We'd love to get, as always, some new people in. So if you've never been part of speaking out, we'd love you to raise your hand and be part of today. On terms of the calendar, one thing missing from the day book we sent out earlier, Senator Vance is on the border making remarks on the U.S.-Mexican border at 11:25 Eastern time. And we'll see how much attention that gets. Vice President Harris speaks at 2:20 Eastern in Texas at memorial service for late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. President Trump, President Biden, and Doug Emhoff and Jill Biden all have no public events today, at least as of now. So, guys, let's talk about the prisoner swap. And I'm just wondering, Sean, maybe you start first. You raised before we started this question of why now? What's in it for Putin to do this now? Talk about the deal as you see it and the politics of it.
Yeah, so I mean, look, I think we're still seeing the details come out in terms of who the swap was for. And coming out of the announcement of it, the breaking news of it, I thought, okay, if the last time you traded for whatever the guy's name is, the Butcher of Death, who was, because that politically, I think, could have had blowback right now, weak on, soft on, terrorism, whatever. It doesn't sound that way. And again, I get it. We're getting this news as we're going on right now. What I wonder is, you can say a ton about Putin in terms of how evil the guy is, and right, but I think we can at least give him credit that he's a manipulative, strategic thinker kind of guy. And so why now? What is his doing? Because I had this in my thought, this Carter Reagan idea of him releasing Evan and Paul Whelan, the day after Trump won, as a screw you to Biden. What is it right now he sees or wants? What is he's trying to screw with us. We know that. And so why now? What is that? And maybe it's something to Harris. I don't know.
Yeah. You're a veteran Putin watcher. What do you think?
I will credential myself on Foreign Affairs by saying I once had a 3-month subscription to Foreign Affairs. So I will weigh in with my expertise here. But yeah, to Sean's point, it's a move that I think is a little shrouded. Maybe he thinks that Trump is not going to win. Maybe he thinks that the odds have changed there. It's also worth noting, as we talk about the swap, Sean's right. This is always a hot button issue, but this is what happens when we do prisoner swaps with countries that make it a habit to jail celebrities or journalists just to get the upper hand in negotiations. It is always hard for liberal democracies without it making a swap that includes an actual war criminal or someone who has committed terrible offenses.
I don't know if there was any op-eds during that 3-month subscription, but I always feel like that there's if you're looking at this from the folks of the State Department, you go, last time we had to trade for the Butcher of Death, and this time we're doing it for at least what I just initially heard. So I apologize, and if anyone in the chat has better info, there was like a financial crimes and all this kind of stuff. If you're at the State Department, it feels like you got a great hand, at least for what we're getting now. So I apologize if things evolve. Please erase the tape here.
Yeah,
but people are looking at Putin going, "What did you just do? Last time you got a lot for this."
Tim, we saw, I don't know if the timing's a coincidence, but we saw yesterday the deal with the 3 people in Guantanamo. There's some political vulnerability there. The Republicans at least think they've attacked that. Would you say that if you were in the Harris operation now, these 2 events are more upside or more downside?
I think they're more upside. I think it shows some resolution of some issues under the current administration. So I think it's upside.
Well, I think there's an opportunity there. Look, there's the reality of what it took to get KSM put away. Without getting into too much, I can just tell you that I think the government had a high degree of exposure in terms of some of the things that they had done, and a lot of things that would come out in discovery classified wise. That's the
so you could never charge them, in other words.
Right.
Never try them.
So that aside, the political reality is this. I think depending on how the 9/11 families come out, how much oxygen they get, You've seen the statements already. I think because of the Olympics, it may be limited, but if they find an opening where Trump can capitalize on the Biden administration cutting a soft on crime deal, that could be a big deal. I think it's going to be tough right now, to be honest with you, considering the other things that are happening
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how the White House coordinates with the vice president and her campaign, right? And particularly as these folks come home, right? Did they let her participate in some sort of victory lap of getting the Americans back or not? I predict they will, but it's not a done deal.
I mean,
and
look,
of course,
I gotta be
she
honest
might be on the
Mark,
road the day it happens. Yeah,
I get the attempt to do that, but to claim that the vice president was somehow suddenly involved, I think that would be jumping the shark, so to speak.
Well, she shouldn't have to be involved necessarily in the talks, although they can claim that, and for all we know, she was. But if there's an event at the White House and she can be part of it, if she's going to get the downsides of being part of the administration, which
Correct.
she assuredly is, I don't see any reason why she
Yeah.
can't possibly get the upside. All right, let's move on. I talked last night on Two Way about my views of the event yesterday, and
we keep
there's
talking about the prisoner swap, please.
Yeah. No. So there's some Democrats who think the campaign ended yesterday, that the election's over. There's some Republicans who think it was a brilliant strategy for Trump. I definitely think he wanted to put a circuit breaker on there. If you guys want to talk about the event yesterday, we can. But here's what I'm more interested in, okay? In 2004, the Bush people for a while were going after John Kerry as liberal. They went after him for liberal. And then when he said, for it before I was against it, then he went windsurfing. They switched from liberal to flip-flopper, can't trust him, doesn't believe in anything, right? You can't say someone's a doctrinaire liberal and they don't believe in anything, they're a flip-flopper. It seems to me that at least right now, what the Trump people are doing is she's weird. She's weird is the word of the cycle, right? You can't trust her. She's a chameleon. You don't really know her. Now, obviously, partially that's intended as a dog whistle to say she's a black/Indian woman. But part of it is just to say, America, you don't know this woman. And when you look into her, she repudiated her fracking position in a second. She's changing all these positions to the politically more palatable place. So, Tim, what do you think of you can't trust her as opposed to she's liberal?
I mean, I will just say that is a totally giving them a lot of credit framing for what happened yesterday. Like the fact that Trump does not understand what it means to be biracial as well. And you could make those arguments about policy without a wild dog whistle, foghorn, I guess, to a group of black journalists. It seems like it seems like another moment where he just can't help himself. And then the campaign kind of takes a little bit of direction at the rally because they're like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing today. It doesn't seem like something Susie Wiles or Chris LaCivita would sit down and say, like, here's the message of the day. The thing that I think is interesting about this, though, is look, up until now, in a lot of different ways, and this was my fear in 2016, Trump still was obviously elected, but that you would run out of novel ways for Trump to display his craziness that the media is able to latch onto and have a long conversation about. But God bless him, he found another way to do it yesterday, and this is now going to dominate the conversation. So it's an unforced error. The framing of is she someone you can trust? Is she changing positions? Sure, but like it's such an alienating position, and it reminds so many people what they dislike about Trump. So
Sean was yesterday mad genius or ending the campaign or somewhere in between?
Anyone who thinks it ended the campaign was born after 2016.
Agree.
Yeah.
I think that I think everybody, every time Trump says or does something, everyone goes, well, that's a showstopper. This guy has plowed through every political norm that I know and succeeded. I had this conversation with somebody yesterday. I mean, look, the reality of Trump is that he has done it his way. If you think about 2016, the primaries, 2016, general election, he made it very personal and he won. Hat tip Newt Gingrich for this thought because I stole it from him. But Trump has a belief that he's done this and been successful, and to a large extent he's right. So I get everybody in the wigging out about how Trump carries himself, but at the end of the day, if you look back, not just that, but Little Marco, Lion Ted, Hillary Clinton, Crooked Hillary, it has worked for him, and I think that he defaults to what has worked for him when he feels like he needs to break out of the bubble.
Sean, based on either your knowledge of this particular case or how how Trump operations operate, do you think his team knew he was going to do that yesterday?
My God, no. Absolutely not. But I will
Yeah.
say, so there's two things. The conference yesterday was just classic Trump. I mean, that's him in an interview wheeling and dealing as he does. I would say this. That's number one. Number two is I don't want to get off on a tangent, but I will say that NABJ, to invite him the way that they did, look, I'm not getting into the response, but I will say that they came in hot and heavy on that guy. Number two, this idea of phony, I get what they're doing about the flip-flopping and the phony. I still believe that policies with Kamala in particular are the strongest thing. I mean, that's the end of the day, whether it's Pennsylvania and fracking, the border stuff.
She's taken. But how do you continue to do Pennsylvania and fracking if she says now she's for fracking?
Because you just play the tape over and over again of her standing there with Aaron Burnett saying, "I'm unequivocally." I mean, that's her. You don't.
Well, but Trump was against TikTok and now he's for it. So,
but guess what? Trump has a record, and he can say, as president,
yeah, his record is as president, he was against TikTok, and now he's trying to be president again. He's for it.
Right.
I think we should start a counter here.
I will just say this, Mark. I believe that TikTok is a horrible thing. It's a tool of the Chinese government and people in the United States who are acting and advocating on behalf of TikTok are foreign agents. I cannot believe this. That being said, do you really think that anyone is going to vote based on Trump switching his position on TikTok?
No, but what I'm saying is there's a difference between attacking her current positions and the difference between attacking her past positions that she's repudiated, which is why I think they might be dabbling in you can't trust her. Because if she's going to repudiate every unpopular position, and she started down the road, and she's repudiated about a third of them at this point, you play the tape and she says, I don't think that anymore. And the media that's on her side says, we're not going to say she's against fracking because you know what? She says she's not against fracking.
Well, here's the answer that I would hope is the right one. This many days out, there's been time to go into the field and to test each of those arguments. And I'm hoping and praying to God that they've actually gone out and it says, hey, flip-flop and phony plays better than being anti this or that. I mean, that's all I can hope for.
All right, let's move off of this. Let's do Veep stakes and then start bringing folks in because we're a little bit past where we'd like to be. I still think it's Shapiro. If you ask me to play Clue, it's Governor Shapiro on Sunday through a leak to the Associated Press. Tim, you still holding out for your bland? No one's heard of him. Lower downside, lower upside.
Incredible upward trajectory. Veteran, educator, governor, past progressive agenda. Yes, I'm still holding out for Walz. I mean, look again. The tour ends. The tour that she's going on with her VP candidate ends in Western Wisconsin, which is Eastern Minnesota. I think it could be Walz, but we're also in a position now where it is a little bit of like hurry up and wait. I think you saw a lot of people get out there, do their media interviews, showcase their chops. We've seen less of it, and so now we're in that waiting final vetting period, I think.
Mark, I'll tweak your clue. It is Shapiro on Sunday afternoon via a fake phony phone call. Real quick, by the way, Jessica is saying something in the chat that I just want to clarify. Jessica is saying that she doesn't consider it a flip-flop if you change your mind. I get that, Jessica. The only thing I would say is there's a difference between evolving on an issue and the political attack that comes from it. That's the difference here is what can you do with it?
Yep.
Just very quickly, I think but the difficulty here, and I've said this before, is she has now served in an administration for 3.5 years that is more moderate, that she gets to attach her public service and policy to at the highest level. So like, I know the argument from the right. I know they're going to play the clips, but I think she has a good case to press.
All right. Before we bring in Gotham City's Greg Kelly, who I know what his topic's going to be because I have ESP. Would you rather have, Tim, Harris's hand or Trump's hand right now?
Oh, Harris every day.
Yeah, I agree. I'd rather have Harris's hand because she's got momentum and she's tied. Huh? Sean?
Trump has bigger hands.
Trump has a better hand?
Bigger hand.
Bigger hands. Sean, if you believe it, I think you're saying Trump has the upper hand. What's that based on?
I just think right now they're still riding. I think the issue matrix that people believe that immigration and the economy are still the number one issues. We've got 97 days to go. I think at the end of the day, that still wins. They do need to hone in on that message, but I would rather have the issues on my side in the final days.
Okay. Gotham City's Greg Kelly joins us. unmade up, but super focused. Greg, what would you like to ask or say?
Pretty relaxed. Thank you. Look, a question. Number one, I thought he was overreacting yesterday, Trump. It was an overreaction. What troubled me the most was when he kept saying, I've never been asked a question in such a manner. Her manner was fine. The substance was unfair, especially when she said, nobody wants you here, or half the people don't want you here. I guess my question, though, is, and I've gone through this and I've had a lot of questions already answered, but is there any substance to what he was saying about Kamala Harris? I'm trying to find an example where she said,
No,
I'm Indian American.
Yeah. So, Greg,
Yeah.
even in the examples, I'm sorry to interrupt, but even in the examples that are being played on Newsmax, for instance, her with Mindy Kaling, her at that press conference, she says with Mindy Kaling, she says, you look like half my relatives. She's saying right there. There are individual instances where she celebrates her Indian heritage, but it's not to the exclusion of simultaneously talking about her father's side of the family. And same with the press conference. She's not repudiating it. Donald Trump is right that at times she's emphasized one, but she's never hidden the fact that she's a mixed race. Never.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
totally made up. It's a totally made up thing.
No, Mark, I mean, I don't think you can say that. She's had a long career in politics. It goes all the way back to 2003. And somebody just might, and by the way, look, I think the whole thing, I would have preferred him to stay on the issues. I think it was an overreaction, but now I'm curious. And I don't think, look, I look for that stuff too. I found Mindy Kaling. I found up a couple of others, but I'm intrigued if there is something where she was really emphasizing
there's some
headlines.
There's some headlines that celebrate one side or the other on occasion, but the Mindy Kaling thing does not prove your point. It runs in direct contradiction to your point.
Actually, Mark, I'm not saying it proves my point. I'm asking, and I found the Mindy Kaling thing pretty quick, but she's been in politics for a long time. When Trump brought that up, is there an example somewhere? You say it doesn't matter, or you say it doesn't exist. It might exist. I'm just vaguely curious. I mean,
but Greg, if she was engaged, if she were engaged in a cover-up, it wasn't a very good cover-up because she's constantly blowing it by saying what her background is, including in the Mindy Kaling interview.
Well, all right. One last thing for me. Forget Mindy Kaling. In 2019, she was asked point blank by a mainstream reporter. I think he was from Reuters. Are you African American or are you Indian American? She laughed in that, arguably some would say inappropriate way. It was nervous. It was sustained. And she said, I'm an American and look at my book. It does suggest to me some ambivalence and some selectivity about the issue. And she looked very uncomfortable with Mindy Kaling, oh, by the way. So it is a side issue.
I say with affection and respect, I just don't agree with your analysis of those two pieces of video. Not at all. I don't agree at all. Guys, weigh in. Side with
really
me.
quickly. I just want to say, like, the last two conversations that we have had about the Trump campaign, really, that have dominated media are cat people. And what does it mean to be biracial? I don't understand. It is not where the Trump campaign wants to be. I mean, maybe it is where they want to be, but it's where they shouldn't want to be. And it is pretty wild. I mean, I agree with all of your pushback there, Mark. The one thing I'll say too is the thing that we saw at the Trump rally, the article that was like, she's the first Indian American woman to be elected to the Senate. And people are like, well, why didn't it say she was black? Because she was the second black senator, and it was groundbreaking that the first Indian American senator was elected. So like, it's just, I get people are confused. I guess I don't know why, and it's a rabbit hole for the right wing that's going to bear no fruit.
Greg, thank you. Come back. Greg,
last thing. Barack
go
Obama wrote a book about his ambivalence on race. And we could pretend this is the most politically incorrect thing ever said. Sometimes he was too black, sometimes he was too white. He said that stuff out loud in multiple books. So I think there might be a little bit more to it than you've suggested. Not that I want to go there. I think you're right. It's a silly issue to be on.
Greg, tell everybody why you love Two-Way.
The hosts and the audience.
All right, Greg, thank you. All right, James, come on in. Tell everybody where you are. Remind them who you're supporting and ask away.
I'm in Tokyo at the moment. That's where I live now. Big battleground state. But I used to be in New York.
Konnichiwa.
So I what's that?
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa. So just a quick couple of comments. I wanted to say, I think for a Harris supporter like I am, I don't think that the election was, for me, it just got started because Trump was not being Trump. We need him to say inane things every day. We need him to self-destruct in order for things to unfold the way you want them to unfold. And yesterday was pitch perfect. I think that the honeymoon for Harris can continue as long as the media has something to focus on. And that's what they've been giving us for the last few weeks. So as long as Trump will come out and say some crazy thing every few days, this will unfold exactly the way we need it to.
Yeah.
I would say, on the flip-flopping, there's stuff on Trump flip-flopping on abortion, on NATO, on universal health care, on gun control, on Hillary Clinton herself. I don't think it makes much of a difference unless they actually did something in support of a cause. It's a quote, it's a soundbite, and it can disappear, and she can make a new reality. And I think that she's been on the economy, on immigration. The speech in Atlanta was some good stuff. I think she could say a lot more on inflation, but she's meeting the moment. And I guess the only thing I would ask you guys is, in terms of, we started to hear a lot of stories. I almost don't want to mention it in case anyone will fix it. We started to hear stories in May about how Laura Trump took over the RNC. They gutted they fired 60 people, 25% of the staff. They kind of gutted the ground game. They sent a lot of the money to election integrity issues. I think in terms of turnout, there's going to be a big disparity in what the RNC is doing right now on the ground in the battleground states. Maybe a dozen or so offices compared to like 50 or 60 for Harris. Is that those stories are a little dated now. So what do you guys know about that disparity?
Chris LaCivita, who's running both the Trump campaign and the RNC, has beefed up what he thinks they need to do for a ground game. To me, the biggest issue is to get Trump to stop, for the Republicans, to get Trump to stop saying early voting's for the devil. I don't know how much it matters. Sean, you're an expert on the RNC. How's it going in terms of equalizing or getting closer in the ground game?
Well, I think that they had an advantage going in for a while, and I think that they paused that. The question is, how much did they lose? There's some questions about how much now they're teaming up with outside groups to rely on them to do some of the GOT stuff. I share James's concern about this, though. I mean, to me, when you have an election, as we have the past two cycles, the get out the vote effort, the IDing of these folks, and the early vote A/B chase is going to be massive, and I think critical. So you're asking the right question. I think probably need to dig a little deeper in the next 48 hours to get a better answer for you. But I think the stories of the demise of the ground game were exaggerated early on. Number one, but as we get into these final days, that is going to be the key answer. Who has a better ground game to get these folks out?
I will say in general, I think Democrats are more comfortable pointing to our numbers because I do think, and maybe this is biased, but I think historically we've been better at building up the ground game and organizing, and which is why you can find numbers really easy from the Biden campaign, that we've got 1,300 staff, that we've got 250 plus field offices, that we've got, X number of volunteers and volunteer hours logged and doors knocked. So I guess, I don't know what's happening at the RNC, but I don't see those numbers promoted to the same degree that you see on the Democratic side.
And on the current trajectory with early voting not that far away, one campaign has momentum and energy and excitement, and the other has less so. James,
for the two cycles that I had to answer for that, the hardest part about it was that we would try to juxtapose the cannibalization of high propensity voters on the Dem side, saying, hey, they got these people to vote early, and here's where we are. And it's way above. I mean, it's a complex math issue that you're getting people to get their head wrapped around, and it doesn't work, right? A vote is a vote. So if you can bank more votes, most people don't care. They're like, you have 10, we only have 2. And we would have to explain why we were going after low propensity voters to get them, and yet they were banking high propensity. And it's like,
James, who's got the upper hand and why?
Harris has the upper hand right now because the media has turned. and they will stay. There's been an appetite to take down Trump, and I support it, but I think that is dialed in, and it will stay dialed in. And I
right.
think that
Yeah.
people, I'll just say one more thing. People, I think, mistake the excitement to defeat Donald Trump with specific excitement around Harris. She really just has to be someone to meet the moment, and she's meeting it. So all of the support is coming, all of the excitement is gathering, and that will continue.
James, genki desu ka? Thank you for joining us.
Genki desu. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thanks.
Hi, ja, mata, sayonara. All right,
Mata.
so we're warning our stations. We are going to go a little bit over. I want to do speed round with the other people who've got your hands up currently. Some familiar faces. Again, we'd love more new people to be participating. I'm going to bring you all in one at a time. I just want a real quick answer from all of you, and Sean and Tim can comment as they wish. Who's got the upper hand and why? And again, looking for a sentence or two, not your first chapter of your book. All right. If you don't want to do that, you just say pass. But let's go. Lenny, who's got the upper hand and why?
It's very simple, Mark. I think that Kamala has the upper hand because the deepest underlying issue in this election will be age, mental fitness, and vigor. With Biden gone, Trump stands out like a sore thumb as a crazy old grandpa, and she's going to play that. She doesn't really need to play it. He'll play it for her. He's been doing it.
Thank you, Len. Thank you, Lenny. Thank you. Pete, who's got the upper hand and why?
Harris has the upper hand because the media continues to be a Democratic super PAC. But lost in the noise yesterday was Trump's statement on no tax on the Social Security. I heard that. I don't know who else did, but that's going to be important.
Yeah.
Oh, great
Okay,
point.
thank you, Pete.
Brought that up.
Yep.
I only saw
Jen,
it
who's got
because
the upper
Sean
hand?
shared it on Instagram. That's the only reason I saw that.
There you go.
Jen, who's got the upper hand and why?
I think I agree with everything Pete said. Right now, Kamala has it because she's got the, press carrying her water. So, and she will continue to have that through the whole election. So,
All right. So far, everybody thinks she does, including two Trump folks. Mr. Cole, who's got the upper hand and why?
Well, Harris has the upper hand because the thing that's being ignored is the main issue is Trump himself, and a majority of the country doesn't like him. And until they can find some way to make everybody hate her, that's just going to prevail.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Ronnie, who's got the upper hand and why?
Contrarian, Trump, because he has said exactly where he's going to go in a clear and concise way. First 100 days for the entire term. Kamala and the DNC is going to have to answer that at some point. And today they don't want to do it.
First
Ronnie,
100
thank you.
days,
Charles,
Project 2025, very clear roadmap.
Charles,
yes.
who's got the upper hand and why?
Trump, he took control of the news cycle, and Kamala all for honeymoon.
All right. Thank you, Charles. You're going to pronounce your first name for me, or you're just going to go, sir? I'm not even going to try.
It's just David. Are you? I think
David,
you're
okay.
talking to me.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
good.
Go ahead.
I'll answer your question first, which is who has the upper hand. I think I generally agree with what people have said that Kamala has has the upper hand, but I think it may depend a little bit on who she chooses for her VP and whether and the unpredictable, because I would never count Trump out at any given point.
Yes.
Because
Yes,
he's
sir.
been,
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. We got to move. We got a running clock here. Daniel, who's got the upper hand and why?
Harris, because it gives America an opportunity to not have an old white man as president.
Okay. David, sorry I cut you off. Daniel, thank you. Sean, closing comment.
I am shocked. I'm joking. I mean, that Tim brought up, but yesterday when Kamala had the opportunity to immediately go back at Trump after NABJ, she opened with Project 2025. I am sort of continued to be bewildered, call it weird, that these folks
do a focus group, dude. It's all anybody's talking about in America.
Oh, I don't think so. Anyway,
all right, I was half kidding. Tim,
Yeah.
closing
I mean-
comment. Don't make it about Governor Walz. Something else.
I know. And now it's going to be about Project 2025. I mean, I will just say, reading what is happening and the fact that they are shuttering at Heritage, the fact that Trump's campaign team is pushing back on it, they know it's a liability. I know the shorthand people don't love, but the idea of a 900-page federal takeover scares people, and I think Democrats are going to find a way to communicate on it better. And we're seeing more people know what Project 2025 is. Navigator research has shown that has exploded. So I am confident that is a good message to push on.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Thanks for those who participated. We'll be back tomorrow, same bad time, same bad channel, 9 Eastern time here for the morning meeting. I'll probably be back later for a two-way this afternoon or this evening. Check my Substack or my Twitter feed for the where you can watch in your community. Guys, thanks. We'll see everybody tomorrow.